Alabama writer throws some serious shade Auburn's way and raises the question, does Auburn have a development problem?
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, I'm not going to get you too fired up this morning. There's an Alabama writer that throws some mega shade Auburn's way. I'm curious to know your thoughts on if you feel like it's warranted or not. Mostly revolves around Auburn not having any first-round picks since 2020, and overall, does Auburn have a development problem? Is it something just specifically at Auburn? If you come to Auburn, can you not go in the first round, or does it make it harder to go in the first round? We're going to talk about that. Who gets credit for first-round picks? At what point in time do you get to claim, hey, as a coach, I put that kid into the NFL, and then Chad Baker-Mazara finds his landing spot? We'll talk about all that here in just a moment. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. You got just, I guess, 2 more days to use coupon code TheBarn30 to take 30% off your order. If you love salsa, you're going to love giving this salsa a try. It's got a little southern kick to it. They got a mild, they got a spicy. I just think you're going to love it. I got a text yesterday. Hey, I finally pulled the trigger, bought a whole case of it. So we're gonna have it for a while. I think you should give it a try too. If you don't want to buy it in bulk, you can go. If you live in Alabama and you live close to a Publix, you can get it there. If not, go on that website. Save big. Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. It's good, y'all. I don't really even like giving people credit because I know most of this is inflammatory and just for clicks, but Ronald Evans from Bama Hammer was talking about the NFL draft, and he said this, and it raised a bunch of questions in my mind. I want to talk it out with you guys, and you let me know what you think in the comments. But here's the quote that particularly got me. Auburn players with expectations of becoming an NFL first rounder are either oblivious to or unconcerned about Auburn's poor track record for developing NFL players. Some might say that makes players delusional. Apparently, Auburn's 2024 and 2025 roster additions buy into the tired theme of Hugh Freeze being called a college football wizard. There's no doubt that Auburn has gone through a pretty dark period over the last 4 or 5 years. And there's no doubt that Auburn hasn't necessarily blown the doors off of the first round of the draft over the last, I don't know, let's just say since 2000, there's maybe been 12 or 13 first-round picks. So on average, one every, other year, something like that. And you look across the state, and you've had Nick Saban over there for forever, who has just pumped out first rounder after first rounder. And then you look over at Georgia and Kirby Smart. Georgia's always really had a lot of luck with, not a lot of luck, but they've always had a lot of first round picks just because the state of Georgia is so talent rich and they have a monopoly over it. But it made me ask this question, okay, to myself. What gets a player drafted? Does Auburn really have Auburn? Just literally Auburn, not being associated with a university. What about, does Auburn have a draft problem? Like, in other words, if you come to Auburn to play football, does it put you behind the 8 ball just because it's Auburn? Because it seems like when you have these type of discussions, you hear this all the time. Insert school puts players into the NFL. Insert school doesn't put players into the NFL. So my question is, what actually puts players into the NFL? What are the characteristics that put players into the NFL? And where has Auburn fallen short? I think it's a multitude of things. But I think there's three main things that help put a player into the NFL. Number one is the overall talent level you're bringing in. Let's just be real. Alabama is not bringing in a bunch of 3-stars and turn them into draft picks. They're just not. Now, do you have, under Nick Saban, you probably had, I think they had at one point in time, more of the 5-stars ended up panning out in Alabama than they did elsewhere. But the overall talent of the kid matters a ton. Okay? Let's don't play this game that all these schools are out there just taking, chicken, what, and turning it into chicken salad. Like, they're taking some of the best players in the country and competing them against the best players in the country, which is the second part, is competition. So the overall talent level of the kid, the competition, it's one thing to bring in a 5-star and he's automatically one of the best players on the team, which I feel like at times has been, you look over the past, how many 5-stars that Auburn's brought in have just basically started right away. You come in and you're the best player on the team. It happens, quite a bit. So the talent level across the board matters as well for development. Competition, knowing, hey, I can't just slack off because the guy behind me could beat me out. The guy right beside me could beat me out. The guy 2 classes behind me could beat me out. Competition matters. That's what makes me so excited about this wide receiver room and this defensive back room. And I just hope that this is one of the first times where they can truly go like mano a mano and make each other better. And there's going to be wins and losses on both sides. And honestly, what you got to try to manage is the confidence of one of the groups over the other if one of them has a bad day. Because, hey, look, you're going up against some of the best players in the country. Overall level talent of the kid, the talent level on the team. And then I think finally the last piece is the situation or the system that the kid's in. I think that those three things are huge factors into what gets a kid to the NFL. And what I mean by system, I'll give you an example. After Greg Robinson was drafted in the first round and became somewhat of a bust, Auburn became known, Gus Malzahn's system became known as a quote-unquote, and I don't want to say became known. It was already kind of thought of as somewhat of a quote-unquote high school system, but it became known as a system that didn't get offensive tackles ready for the NFL. Shortly after that, Auburn went on this drought where you just couldn't get a tackle. You couldn't hardly get an offensive tackle. Gus lived and died by off transfers. And he did pretty well, bringing in some transfers. But that became kind of a thing. So a system, I think, can definitely help and hurt a kid's development. Auburn has not had, to me, two things. Obviously, Auburn's had some highs, some very high highs, but they've had immediate lows following. Auburn's really had a hard time maintaining a level of continuity or success for a very long time. A really good example of a system that maintained success for a longer period of time at Auburn was Kevin Steele at Auburn. What did Auburn become known for a little stretch there? DBU. We're bringing in guys, we're getting them developed, and we're getting them to the NFL. Kevin Steele was a consistent factor for that long period of time. So those three things to me are what Auburn's really struggled with. I don't think it's just Auburn. I don't think it's just like if you go to Auburn, I think that's an unintelligent argument. I think you don't want to do the research into why. It's lazy. That's better. It's a lazy argument. So the question is, for Hugh, you seem like you're checking off box number one. You're bringing in the top level talent. You're bringing in the kids that are draftable, that are going to be draft prospects. Keldrick Falk, for example, Cam Coleman. Those kids, there's multiple others, but those kids are, NFL prospects. They're going to be on NFL radars pretty much right out of the gate. Then you got to have the competition level on the roster. You got to build your roster to the point where there's competition at a high enough level that it helps raise everybody. I think you're very close to getting there. And then you got to talk system. DJ Durkin on defense, you got him for a second year. Keep as much continuity as you can there. I think you're doing well there. And then you're going into your second year of it being 100% Hugh's offense. Hugh's offense has been proven to put wide receivers in the NFL. We've seen that. Feel like you got to do it with quarterbacks. It's been proven to put offensive linemen into the NFL. I think you got to be able to do it with quarterbacks. You got to show that you can make it happen with quarterbacks. You've had a couple of quarterbacks throw for thousands of yards. Haven't really had one hit yet in the NFL. I don't necessarily think it's because NFL teams don't want the quarterbacks. I think overall you've had some limited quarterbacks that you've just done a lot of really good things with. So I don't really know how I feel 100% about that comment. I think it's lazy. I'd love to know your thoughts. What gets a kid drafted? What's the most important thing? And does Auburn have a draft problem, a development problem, or is it just been a series of flux? You've just been in flux for a lot of years, and it's cost you on being able to retain players, develop players in the same system, and so on and so forth. I'd love to know your thoughts there. Who gets credit? When do you get credited for a first-round pick? I'm going to read a little bit more from that article in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. BARN. So you give them $100. They're going to give you 50 back on top of that to play with. Free money. So go hit all the sports betting lines you can imagine. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball. Sports every single night. You can have a ton of fun there. Check it out, mybookie.ag. And if you need a good real estate agent in the local area, Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area, hit me up. Send me a message on Twitter. Send me a message on Instagram. You can email me at krush@thekeyagency.realestate. If you want to buy, you need to sell, you want to build. There's probably not a better I've worked with more builders in town than maybe anybody. I can definitely point you in the right direction there. And then if you live outside of the area and you're just looking to invest in Auburn, I can help you there. I can help you out there as well. Give me a shout. Love to help. Love to help you and your family find your dream home. We'll be back right after this. All right, so who gets credit for a first-round pick? This is further on in that article. So far, Kalen DeBoer is a better developer of first-round NFL players than Hugh Freeze. DeBoer's coaching career only includes 5 FBS seasons from Washington and Alabama. DeBoer has had 5 NFL first-rounders. Hugh Freeze has been a coach for 12 seasons, and he's only had 4. All were Ole Miss players. 5 NFL first-rounders after 5 seasons, dwarfs 4 after 12. Well, they're including Jihad Campbell and Tyler Booker in those first-round picks for DeBoer. One of them's a defensive player, which DeBoer, I'm assuredly had nothing to do with. And the other was Tyler Booker, who's been there for, quite a while. So my question is, at what point does a coach get to claim a first-round pick? That seems claiming kids that you didn't bring to a school and you were only there for one season, that were both preseason like top prospects in the draft, I find it kind of tough to give you credit for those. Am I way off there? At what point do you get to claim them? I feel like it, especially with the transfer portal, if you've been with a coach for 2 years, I think you might have a chance to. I think you earn the right to maybe claim it as a draft pick. I think Hugh and staff get credit for Jalen McLeod, getting him from being a tweener G5 prospect into a draft pick. He was at Auburn for 2 years. I think he got better over those 2 years and became a draftable prospect, much more than he would have had he stayed at App State. Hugh at Ole Miss, to me, getting those 4 draft picks, those 4 first-round draft picks, when he took over Ole Miss, I think the previous 2 years they had won 2 conference games. So we're not starting on the same – we're not both starting on the same base, okay? So let's don't play this game where let's just try to look at both situations and they're both equal, okay? Both spots Hugh's taken over, Auburn and at Ole Miss, are probably at the bottoms of where they've been in their football history. He took Ole Miss over, and within just a few years, he had 4 first-round picks. DeBoer, on the other hand, took over basically a completely loaded roster. I mean, a completely loaded roster. Hasn't really had to do a ton. It's hard for a roster that just came off of, playing in the college football playoff. It's tough for me to look at those and say, okay, they both started in the same place and one's ahead of the other. Now, getting 3 draft picks at Washington is fantastic. I think that's very, very impressive. I'm not sure I'm ready to give him credit for Jihad Campbell and Tyler Booker yet. But you know what? Next year, I think whoever from then on, I think you probably give him credit for. Transfer portal kids are another question. Because there are kids that you get that you bring up and you develop, but then there's a lot of guys that are chasing bags and they were going to be a draft pick no matter where they went. That's a deeper discussion. But I think by and large, once you've been somewhere 2 years, you probably get a chance to claim and or take blame for, especially if a person's been there for 2 years, any acceleration in talent or maybe even decline. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that comment. I love to know your thoughts. Is it really comparable? Should DeBoer get credit for those 2 first-round picks? Do you think Hugh, and that's another thing, do you think Hugh's going to have sort of continue the trend that he had from Ole Miss? Should he continue to have some success this year and continue the success on the recruiting trail? I mean, like I said, you looking like you're probably on pace, if everybody's healthy, to have a couple of, at least first-round draft prospects. Should they have good years and continue to, impress? I think you can break that slump here pretty quick. Chad Baker-Mazara finds his landing spot, goes to USC, all the way out west. And the rumors are, USC had lost a couple of guys. They had lost one of their point guards. They had lost out on essentially a Chad Baker-Mazara. They lost out on their, 6'7", 3 guard in the portal. And were, I guess, probably, I don't want to say desperate because Chad's a good player, but they were in a situation where it's like, hey, we got to secure somebody. And they went and got Chad. And it sounds like he had a pretty substantial deal, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million. So he wanted a gross raise, and he got it. Now, will it end up being a net raise or not? it's gonna be tough to. I don't know. Obviously, you got to take if Auburn forces the buyout, which by all accounts it seems like they will, or they should. You got to take that right off the top. Then you got to take it. You got to factor in taxes, and then you got to factor in, cost of living. I just wonder if he went through a whole lot of trouble just to break even, or just get a couple $100,000 more per year, which is significant. But man, to go through all the trouble of going to a roster that's pretty terrible, go all the way out west when you have, I believe he has a kid here. Just, I don't know. Again, seems like an emotional decision, but I wish him the best. Wish him the best. Hope he does well. But he has found his home at Southern California. He's going to Hollywood. What could go wrong? Should be no problem whatsoever. Guys, let me know what you think about the draft stuff in the comments. What gets a player drafted? What's the most important thing that gets a player drafted? And then at what point do you get to claim a first-round pick? I think that's an interesting discussion. Guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe. Don't forget to go to mybookie.ag and take advantage of that coupon code for that 50% deposit bonus. You might as well take advantage of the free play. Go take the free play and go win big. Guys, I appreciate it. We'll talk again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.